Good morning, student. Today our topic is WH words using was in word. Now we are going to read a short definition about was. Was is the past tense of the verb to be in singular. For example, Rocio was in Canada. I wasn't studying German. Martin was at home yesterday. It wasn't working in the morning. As you can notice, Rocio is singular. I is the first person, so that is why it's also singular. Martin is only one person, that is why it's singular. And it's the pronoun of an object, a place, or an animal. That is why it's also singular. Now, a short definition about where. What is the past tense of the verb to be in plural? Examples: Rocio and Carmen were in Canada. You weren't studying German. We were at home yesterday. They weren't working in the morning. As you can notice, in those sentences we are using the plural form, right? The noun is in plural. Rocio and Carmen, two persons. You is the plural of the second person. We is the plural form, right, of the third person. And also they, right? So those are in plural. But look, here we're going to analyze how can we formate or structure a question using was. Look, here we have an affirmative sentence. Says, he was nervous. This is affirmative. But when you want to do an question, the place changes, the order change. For example, the subject and the verb to be in past change positions. Was he nervous? Short answers. Yes, he was, or no, he wasn't. Let's see other example with where. Formation of the question using where. As you can notice, is the same. In affirmative sentences, they were happy. We change the place. In question is, were they happy? My possible answer, yes, they were. No, they weren't. Remember that if you ask with were, you answer with were. If you ask with was, you answer with was. But what about if I find a questions word or WH questions? For example, who, what, when, which, where, how, and why. How are you going to create your question? Look, let's analyze. In this chart, you can notice that we can also use or create questions using a WH word. For example, where. Where was Emilio Palma born? Or where were Venus and Serena born? Or maybe how long? How long was Neil Armstrong on the moon? Where were his parents from? Right? So when we create questions with a questions word, always the questions word comes to the beginning of my questions and then is the past of the verb to be in the case of was or maybe were. But what about if we don't have questions word? We start with the word was or were as we saw on the previous examples. Look, in this chart you can analyze that order. As I mentioned, no? Remember, when you create a question, first is the questions were, then the word was or were, which is the past of the verb to be, then the subject, and then the complement. Of course, at the last is our questions mark. It happened when we have a questions word, but what about the other case when we don't have questions word? We start with was or were plus the subject plus the complement and finally the question mark. Okay, so let's do more exercise about the structure of the use or the uses of these equations with was or were.